Hello, future helpers. So today we are going to talk about a very exciting part of your helping process and becoming a CASAC, and that is turning in your CASAC application. So uh, there are two ways that you can go about accessing this application. The easiest way is to go onto Google and to search for OASAS CASAC application, as I've done here. And you will find the link. You just open up that link. It will bring you to a PDF file that you can download. I'll show you where I did that. And then you just want to save this application packet. The other way is to contact OASAS directly and have them send you the application packet. That will take a little bit longer, but that's another way you can do it. Once we are able to meet face to face again, OASAS normally comes every semester in person and talks to us about this process. So if you are graduating right away, you second semesters, I would recommend you get on Google and you save this document. You do not need to um, print the entire thing off. You can if you want to, but as you can see, it's 27 pages and not all of them need to be filled out and turned in. So if I was you, I would only print out the ones that you actually need to write on. Even though this is 27 pages, it may seem a little intimidating, but OASAS does a good job of telling you exactly what you need to do to get the ball rolling. And that's what I'm going to cover today. So basically, we're going to cover the application, which is up here, and then we're going to jump down to the paperwork that I want you to fill out, have filled out before you leave your internships, which is Part C for everybody. First semesters and second semesters, you want to have this filled out. If you are a second semester, you want to have Part B filled out as well. And I'll tell you why that is when we get there. Okay. So they tell you a little bit about the purpose of the CASAC here. They tell you about the exam that you are going to need to take once you get your application in and you have completed your 350 hours. And they give you some basic information. They let you know if your application is incomplete, they're going to send you a list of deficiencies. Now, you all are going to get a list of deficiencies because your application will be incomplete. That just means it is incomplete for you to get your CASAC. But what we want you to do right now is to be working toward your CASAC T. Your CASAC T, not your CASAC. It is one application regardless. So do not freak out and get in touch with me and Dr. Pickering when you get the deficiency list. You will have that deficiency list all the way until you become a CASAC. And all it's telling you is that these are the things you still need to fill and get done in order to reach CASAC status. But for you, you want to be able to become a CASAC T, uh, which you are close to doing. We're going to get you there. All right, so there's an important bullet right here about minimum qualifications. Some people ask, what if I want to move out of state? Well, 51% of your 6,000 hours must be done in New York State. So keep that in mind. If you are moving somewhere else, they want 51% of those 6,000 hours to be done here in New York State in order to get a CASAC. Once you have your CASAC, you can go to other states. And as you can see here, the OASAS and the K-Sac are all run by this national IC and RC. So each state has a different form or a different certification that they consider the K-Sac. If you get your K-Sac in New York State, you can move down to Florida or out to California, go to whatever office they have that is their OASAS office, and you can kind of trade in, or you get credit for having your K-Sac, and they will issue you in that state what they consider the K-Sac. The 5-year application period. This is why we have our interns wait until the second semester to fill out your K-Sac application. The clock starts ticking, and it's all based on the postmark date of when you send this initial application in. So we don't want you to send in your application any earlier than you need to, because you're just kind of letting the clock tick. So you've been here at Hudson Valley getting your 350 hours. It makes sense that you want to move forward as close to your graduation date as you can. You have 5 years to get this done. You can see in bold here, they used to have an extension on those 5 years, but now they've taken that back. So you just have 5 years to get this done. If you run out of time, you have to fill the application in again and start over again. All right. So what do you need to get this started? Here it is. Part A application summary, this canon of ethical principles, the Justice Center code, a copy of your diploma or transcript. Again, this is why you are waiting till your Hudson Valley graduation. Just makes it a little bit easier, because you are going to have your associate's degree at the end of your studies here at Hudson Valley. If you are someone who is here at Hudson Valley and you already have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree or an associate's degree from another college, you must include that. So some people in our program are here to get the 350 hours. You have to include that highest level of education. And then this you will receive, the copy of your OASAS 350 hours standardized training certificate, or the academic transcripts to satisfy the requirement. We need to go over all of your 350-hour classes once you are done with graduation, and make sure that you met the minimum requirements for each of those courses within this 350-hour curriculum. Once we do that, we send you this certificate that they're talking about. So you're going to get two things after graduation that are very important to get to OASAS. One is your diploma, if you are here for your associate's degree. The other one is this 350-hour standardized training certificate. Once you have graduated, give us usually 4 to 5 weeks. We will have that out within 4 to 5 weeks after your graduation date, because we do need to go through each and every record and make sure that everything is met. If you have not received your 350-hour certificate a month or a little after a month after graduation, please shoot me an email, or shoot Dr. Pickering an email, and let us know, and we will get that going. There is also a $100 application processing fee, check or money order, to get this rolling. If you go down here a little bit, they tell you that you may obtain your K-Sac training certificate and become eligible upon completion of the above requirements. So that's all you need to do to get your K-Sac T going. Yay, and that's what we want you to get. There is, hopefully this makes sense. Why do I want to get this K-Sac T? You can be considered a QHP at your facility. There is a shortage of K-Sacs and helpers in this field. So OASAS came up with this idea where if you are in an OASAS licensed facility, you can be considered a QHP. However, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. You cannot identify yourself as a QHP until you get your K-Sac. So it makes sense to me if you look at this from the point of view that we are in a shortage of K-Sacs and helpers. Your facility needs a certain number of QHPs, so a K-Sac-T fulfills that requirement for the facility. Also, it should be able to be a bargaining tool for you to get a little bit more money. So this is why we want you to get the application in second semesters. And as soon as you are done with our program, get out there, get into a facility and start working. All right. Now, the other thing that you are going to need, so now you're a K-Sac-T from that part forward. In order to become a K-Sac, to transition from a K-Sac-T to a K-Sac, you have to get these Part B evaluations filled out. We'll talk about those in a minute. You have to get your 6,000 hours of work experience. You have been working on that every hour that you've been at your internship, and I'm going to show you where that form is to fill that out, okay? And we talked a little bit about if you have once you have your associate's degree from Hudson Valley in chemical dependency, that will knock off 1,000 hours of that. If you go on and get a bachelor's degree in a field that is accepted by OASAS, that will knock off 2,000. If you go on and get a master's degree in a field that is recognized, which I'll show you in a minute, that will knock off 4,000 of these 6,000 hours. You can't double dip, so the most you will ever get is 4,000 hours for your education, and you will still need to do 2,000 hours in the field for this 6,000 hours. So if you have your associate's degree and you're jumping into the field, you are looking at 5,000 hours you need to fulfill. You can minus every hour you've done at your internship off those 5,000 hours, and I'm going to show you where that form is. Okay, and you have already got this certificate for the MAT training. You should have done that in the pharmacology class. If you did not, if you were on the cusp and you did not take pharmacology, then you will need to do that. And this is the link you can take right here. This is a free training, but OASAS wants everyone who is going on to become a K-Sac to take that. And you need to take this IC and RC alcohol and drug counselor exam. We sometimes call it the K-Sac exam, but again, this is a national exam that all substance abuse counselors need to take. So if we back up a little bit, this is what we're going over today, these top bullets. That will get you to the K-Sac-T, and that's what we want. A little more money, you are on your way to getting into the field. It gives you a leg up. Get into the field, and while you are working on these hours, whatever you have left of the 6,000 hours, you need to get all of these other things completed. Okay. Now we're going to move on. There are different levels of the K-Sac that they came out with a couple years ago, but you don't need to worry about those right now. Get yourselves in the field, and then the longer you are there, the more you can look at those levels. You will be mailing your application right here. New York State OASAS is right down the road on Western Avenue. So it's nice that we are so close to them too. Okay, so now we go down. These are the different levels I was talking about before. At this point, you don't need to worry about those. So I'm going to bring us down a little bit here and get to the actual application. These are good, where they have the application summary checklist for each part. So In order to get this started, you need to complete the application summary form, your social, basic information that they're talking about here, their $100 they want, and a copy of that diploma or transcript indicating your highest level of education and graduation date. I don't know how long it will take for you to get your diploma. I had said you're going to get your 350-hour certificate within a month of your graduation date. If you get your 350-hour certificate and you still haven't gotten your diploma, you can go on and print out a copy of your transcript and send that in, as well as your 350-hour certificate from us, and OASAS will accept that. It does not need to be an official transcript, so you don't have to pay for this. You can just print it out and send it in. If you get your diploma before or about the same time that you get your 350-hour certificate, then send them both in. And make sure these are copies. See how it says copy? Do not send your originals of your certificate or your diploma. You want to hold on to those. All right, moving on. So the application is fairly straightforward. Make sure that you fill out all of this information on your application. I don't think there's anything I really need to point out here. They do have, if you're working at a OASAS licensed facility, but they don't expect that you would be. So make sure you fill that out. Now you have to, we've spent so much time at Hudson Valley talking about ethics. You have to fill out this ethical form and you need to sign it. So why did Dr. Pickering and I spend so much time talking about ethics? Because OASAS is reminding you of all the things, the ethical practices that you need to follow as a CASAC. All right, and then if we scroll down here a little bit, you need to sign this. Again, this has to do with other code of contacts that, for people with special needs, and you need to sign off on that. And they go down and give you just some information about who a QHP is and who can be filling out your form. You don't need to worry so much about this because all of your supervisors, the people signing off for you during your internships, we made sure were QHPs. Okay, now we're up to Part B. As I said, Part B is only to be filled out during your second semester, and it's near the end of your second semester. Why is this? Because the person who is signing this form must have worked with you for 6 months or longer. Also, if you look here, where did they tell you? All right, so they give you a year. They're talking about, well, actually, they say it right there. They give you a year to get this form in. So you want to make sure that you get this done when you are fairly close to getting your application in, and also when you think you can move forward with getting those 6,000 hours. But the main reason we have you wait is right there. The evaluator has been working with you for a minimum of 6 months. During the first semester, they have not been working with you for that long. If you are someone who changed your placement in the second semester, so you did not work with a field supervisor for the entire 6 months, then do not worry about this form right now. Again, you do not need this to get your CASAC T. We're already, once you get that application in, you are rolling to get your CASAC T. This all goes along with the information you need to get your CASAC. So somewhere in those, you have up to 5 years to get the 6,000 hours of on-the-job training, somewhere you need to have a QHP sign this form that has to do with ethical practices. All right. If you're at the same internship for 2 semesters, near the end of the second semester, have this one signed. It's a fairly simple form to have your supervisor fill out. But if you don't, if you're not able to do this because you moved internships, do not sweat it. You will need to get 2 of these filled in by the time you fill those 6,000 hours. All right. So now let's get to part C. Part C, you all need to have filled out. First semester and second semester. We do this at Hudson Valley as an insurance to you. As I mentioned before, it is not uncommon for our supervisors to move around. This field is very fluid, so people usually move up if they stay with the field, but sometimes they don't stay with the field and they retire or move out to California or around the country, start working other places. We don't want you to wait to have this form filled out until you need it. Again, you don't need this to get your application going, but you need it to fulfill those 6,000 hours. So we have our interns do this right now while you're there, and then you can send this in with your initial application, even though it's not needed, and they'll know that you have started working down some of those 6,000 hours. All right, let me go down a little bit here. Remember all those things you were working on, the core competencies in your contracts, there they are. And then they talk about the 6,000 hours. They give you a little bit of information about that here. I'm looking down. Okay. As you leave Hudson Valley, if you are going to work for a place and they tell you that they are not OASAS certified, they may, OASAS may accept the forms, or they may accept the hours if someone fills out the form for you. Please, please make sure, contact OASAS before you start working there and say, will this apply toward my 6,000 hours? If it's an OASAS licensed facility, then it will. But if it's not, you really need to get their permission to be working there. And I would document any kind of interactions and discussions that you have with OASAS along the way. So just be careful if you start to work for a place that is not OASAS certified. I already went over this. We're talking the 6,000 hours, how much your associates is worth, how much a bachelor's is worth, and how much a master's is worth of this 6,000 hours. Notice here that they say these are examples of approved human services fields. So if you go on for a bachelor's or a master's in a field that is not listed here, you want to get in touch with OASAS and ask them how much they will take of this field that you're getting into. So some of the ones they will accept are here, but they may accept another one too. Communicate with OASAS if you have any kinds of questions. Once you start that application process and you are a K-Sac T, you will have a contact person there that you can talk to, somebody who is in charge of your case. All right, so moving on. They give you, here's another verification checklist of what you are going to need for this section C. And I'm going to walk you through the form that I want you to have filled out before you leave your internship. All right, this part's by you. Last name, first name, social, and you need to sign it. You need to do this before you get your supervisor involved at your internship. Now at this point, go to your supervisor and say, I need to have the OASAS form filled out. I'm finishing my internship for the first or second semester on such and thus a date. You want to have this filled out ideally on the last day you are there of your internship so that every hour of the internship you've done counts. We started off, 168 is the hours that we talk about. Some people do over that each semester. You want to make sure you've accounted for every single hour that you're going to do. And the last day you are there is the day you want to have this filled out to get all those hours. All right. So ask your supervisor if they want to fill this out, if you should fill this part out. But as you can see right here, it should be completed by the applicant's supervisor. Sometimes our interns and their supervisors do this together, but this is where your supervisor is putting their credential on the line to say, yes, this person was here and they have done these number of hours. So you really want to make sure you work with them on this. I know how busy supervisors are, so sometimes they'll say, okay, here's how to fill this part out and come back to me when it's done. That's between you and your supervisor. All right, so this is where you are. Let's say it's Hope House outpatient. And you could put Hope House here is the big one, and then outpatient. Every place you are at needs to have a certificate number. The halfway houses or residentials have them as well. They should be hanging somewhere where the patients can see them. Ask your supervisors where those are. You can also look them up online, and you need to put your telephone number here. And then on that certificate, you should see an address. That's the address they want here. So again, the simplest way might be to look it up online and then use the same address they have here. I say that because some places may be certified through, let's go back to Hope House. I'm not sure this is the case, but they may be certified through one Hope House facility, but they have multiple Hope Houses working under that. So the street at which Hope House is certified, the address may be a little bit different. You want to make sure you check that. I believe everybody is working at an OASAS licensed facility. So it would be right there. Check that first one. But again, make sure you check with your supervisor to ask which type of work setting this is. Sometimes we have people who are in a drug court, or we're getting people into some of these recovery community centers. Those would be a little bit different. All right, this part is important. So you have done, I'm going to stick with 168 hours because that's kind of our usual standard for each semester. But this part does not need you to say you have done 168 hours. Okay, remember that the form you're filling out, this form, you will fill out repeatedly until you have hit your 6,000 hours of on-the-job training. This is the same form, and you fill it out. And again, another good question is, how often should I fill this out? Well, you're filling it out now because you're about to end your internships. Or if it's your first semester of internship, I don't want your supervisor to quit, retire, whatever they do over the summer, and then you get back, or over the winter break, and then you get back and you go, oh, I need to have the supervisor fill out that form, and they've left. So you're filling this out again as your insurance policy to make sure you get those hours. Moving forward, I would fill this form out if you're going to leave a job. So now I'm going from Hope House to Spark. Or if you hear that your supervisor, that QHP, is going to leave, go to them and say, hey, really sorry you're leaving. Maybe bring them some cupcakes or cookies, and ask if they can fill out how many hours you've done under their supervision while they are there. In theory, could you only fill this out one time because you stayed at the same agency and now you have hit all those 5,000 hours because you've got 1,000 for your associate degree? Sure, you fill it out one time and here's my 5,000 hours. Rarely does that happen though, in my experience, because people do leave and they move around. So that's kind of the answer to how often should you fill this in. Now, let's go with you have 5,000 hours left. It'll be a few less because you're 168 per semester. But during that time, you need to have a minimum of 10 hours in each of these. Again, these are core competencies that you were working on. You need to have a minimum of 10 hours in all of these before you reach that 5,000, little less hours. You do not need to have a minimum of 10 hours now while you are only done with 1 or 2 semesters of internship. And as a matter of fact, OASAS may go, what do you mean they did all this work as an intern? Most of what they were doing was observing. So when you fill this out with your supervisor, or your supervisor fills this out, let them know OASAS is not looking for a total of 168 here. That will be on the back. What they're looking for here is that you did some screenings and intakes. Well, how many hours did you do during your 1 or 2 semesters of internship? Maybe you did 5 hours there. So I would put maybe 3 for screening, 2 for intake. And I'm working my way up to that minimum of 10 hours that I'll need before I get my 5,000 hours, less a little bit. I, during my second semester, worked on some treatment planning. Well, how many hours did you work on that? I don't know. They had me work 6 hours. Okay, put it right there. There was a time when someone came in and they were under the influence of something, or we had to get them into detox. Mostly, OASAS would be expecting that during a second semester of internship. First semester should be mostly observing. But if you did that, okay, there's 2 hours there. So my big thing here, if you sat in on treatment team, each week, consultation with other professionals. Okay, it's 15 weeks. Every week I was there, Mr. Farr, for an hour. All right, then that's 15 hours. Big point here is that sometimes we had supervisors who were putting the full 168 hours here and throwing hours all over the place. OASAS may see that as a red flag. So if you end up, in theory, just to really drive this home, you could have 0 in all of these. And you did, you were at your internship and you kind of did different things. OASAS would still accept your 168 hours because you're going to have a lot of time to get this. But the truth is you didn't have 0. Make sure you put some hours in here because you all observed, even in your first semester, some of this stuff going on. So put some hours in here, but it doesn't have to be 168. Okay, moving on. Now, the same thing. First semester, what type of things were you doing? I sat in on groups. Okay, there's group counseling. I worked on some referrals when people got done at the residential facility. Okay, then click that off. I did some evaluations or assessments when people came in. Okay, click that off. So this is just saying what type of things you did to move forward in your counseling. And again, they understand this is an internship program, so you are observing most of this stuff. This is the same form you will be filling out as a worker or an intern or a volunteer. So there are a few differences in this. All right, this part's important. Your supervisor is filling out this form, remember? So if they are a K-Sac, they need to fill out, they need to check this. They should have their K-Sac somewhere in that facility and they'll have a number there that goes with it. If they don't have that, you can Google their name and find out what their K-Sac number is as well. If they are another type of QHP, and all these are types of QHP, they need to check off the box. Dr. Pickering and I have said in the past that it is a good idea to photocopy their certification if they allow you to. You don't even need to take it out of the frame, just photocopy it. Um, and I would stick with that. I would say ask their permission, but photocopy their certification. Actually, make 2 photocopies, keep one for yourself, and you can send one in with this form. Now we go down. This is your supervisor's name, print, what is their job title? They need to sign this, date it. I would have it on the same date of your last day of internship because you're going to have all these hours, and then the telephone number that they can reach your supervisor. All right, this is what I was saying a minute ago. This is the same form whether you are a volunteer or now you are out there getting paid. And we're very excited for when you get paid for this. If you are a volunteer, you click no. As a intern, you click no because you are not getting paid. Do not send this form to human resources. What happened was our interns, and this is going back a few years, our interns used to have to send their forms to human resources, and sometimes human resources was losing them. They didn't even know who you were because as volunteers, they weren't really tracking you. Some places do, some places don't. So I asked OASAS if there was a way that our interns would not have to send their form to human resources. And the next year they came out with this handy dandy box. So again, OASAS listens to us. They are quite responsive. But right now, for your intern hours, it's a no. And that means that your supervisor needs to go down here and they need to print job title and sign this too. Well, wait a minute, they did that up here? Yes, they did, but they need to do it again here. When you are a paid employee, human resources will print and sign down here. One other thing about that, when you are an employee and you're getting ready to send this in because you're sure you have those 5,000 hours filled now, whatever you needed, if I was you, I would go to human resources first and say, how many hours do you have me down for? Because human resources knows every hour you've been paid for, and make sure your hours that you have in your head are the same as the ones that human resources has you down being paid for. Okay, but for now, as an intern, you click no, it's not paid. Supervisor signs here, and then supervisor signs here. And then the last part of this form that you need to fill out is right here. Your job title is volunteer or intern. The dates of employment you can put as the first day of the semester and then the last day of the semester. Even if you started after the first day of the semester and you're completing before the last day of the semester, OASAS knows this is an internship program, so they allow us just to use the semester dates here. And this is where all those hours, 168, I'm using that as the standard, or every hour you have been there and that your supervisor is saying is okay to give you needs to go right there. And please, please make sure that you advocate for yourself and get every hour that you can. That goes right there. That is how you have this form filled out. And that is the last part you need to know about filling out this form. The cool part about Part D is that all of that is done for you. Part D is about the 350-hour certificate. Some people kind of piecemeal that together with different courses, but because you are here at Hudson Valley, your 350-hour certificate it will be taken care of. Every course you've taken and that wonderful tuition money you spent was on fulfilling Part D. So you do not need to fill this out. you will get your certificate, like I said, 4 to 5 weeks after graduation. All right, that is the basics. If I was you, as I said at the beginning, I would only print out the pages of this application that you need to fill out, save your printer ink. But you definitely want to have this printed out, pages 22 and 23. Bring that to your supervisor before you finish up. And if you are a second semester and you have worked at the same internship for 2 semesters, you want to print out page 17 and 18 and ask your field supervisor to fill that out for you too. That way you have one of those 2 evaluations of ethical conduct done. If you have not been at the same internship for 2 semesters, don't sweat it. You still have time for this. It's just something you can get done. And then the only other pages I would print out are all the way back up here, the ones that you have to sign off on in part 1 of this application. Okay, hopefully that all makes sense. If you have questions or comments, you can get in touch with me or Dr. Pickering along the way. Certainly keep in touch with us, future helpers, as you get out there in the field. We love hearing from you. There are job opportunities that come to us all the time. And if you need assistance on walking through this stuff after graduation, certainly you can contact us then. Hope this helps, and we'll see you soon. Take care.